Streaming live across the country, tackling the topics everyone is talking about online. Share, engage, and interact. This is Newsfeed Now.
Good Monday morning, everybody. Today is August 24th, the first day of school for many students across the nation, depending on where you live. Hope it's a great first day back, whether it's on campus or online. I'm Suzanne Bruner. Glad you can join us right now for Newsfeed Now. All eyes are on two tropical storms, which will be impacting the Gulf Coast this week. Yeah, you know, Keith, I know you were pretty shocked when you first stepped outside your hotel. Are you still there, or where are you at right now? And show us what you're seeing.
Well, what we've got, Suzanne, is we are a little bit up the street. Just want to show you, this is a couple hotels down. It's kind of a hotel strip. This is the Motel 6. Third floor completely collapsed. I talked to a couple gentlemen who are actually staying in room 220. That's the one right under the collapse section. They were horrified. You know, of course, it's the middle of the night. It's dark outside. Winds are gusting to 150 miles per hour, perhaps. Blinding rain, no power, and they didn't have any idea what was going on. They're certainly shook up. Now, there's debris strewn everywhere, up and down this whole hotel section. Fire department's coming in, checking to make nobody trapped. Storm surge has dropped considerably. You can see kind of the debris line of where the storm surge was. It's down about 3 feet, but that wasn't a big deal here as the amount of wind damage that we saw across many areas. And of course, we're going to find out more over the coming hours as our crews are able to get further and further out from where they were located to really assess the damage. I will tell you that across the bayou from where our hotel was, there were a series of homes built up, you know, some with boats, some with docks. One of those homes is completely collapsed. We just can't get in there to talk to those folks. I don't even know what those folks happen to be, but we are going to find a tremendous amount of damage from Cameron all the way back toward just south of Lafayette, including the Lake Charles area as well, as these crews and rescue teams get out there and survey the damage.
All right, Chief Keith Monahan, thanks so much for bringing us that live report.
We had those winds up to around 40 and 45 miles per hour, probably coming up over the next few hours. And of course, he's still driving southward and will encounter some heavier rainfall as he does, which all that rainfall will continue to move up here through our state. All right, Suzanne, I'm going to go back over to you.
So down trees, the big concern
right.
because of the rain. And also, like I said earlier, I believe residents out in Arkansas said that they had received some warnings about potential power outages. Real quick, if you can take a look at my computer, I just wanted to pull up power outages in Louisiana because there's quite a bit of it. This is just in the Lake Charles area. And then if I zoom out just a bit, you can get like the full state because the hurricane moved its way up north, but you can see right there indicated in red where those power outages are at. Pat, do you think that it's very likely that Arkansans could lose power?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot there from like Shreveport to Alexandria in that area of state. That's where we still had a Category 1 hurricane move in there. It is basically where the storm is now. There will be some power outages in Arkansas, no doubt, especially in that part of the state that the storm is going to move into. That part of Arkansas is filled with a whole lot of really tall pine trees, which are softwood and they break easily, and they are taller than power lines, and they'll fall down on power lines in a lot of locations.
We know crews are on standby. We know crews are probably working on this right now. According to Entergy Louisiana, 235,000 people, places without power at this time. So we'll continue to keep you updated on this website.
Move north to Washington, D.C. The White House has been a target for protesters. Yesterday, the president moved back to a secure bunker, and now the mayor of D.C. is urging calm. America is still waiting for an address from President Trump about the protest. Let's go to Jesse Tenura now live in Washington, D.C. Jesse, I know that the president yesterday was only in that bunker for about an hour, but this is reserved for when there is a serious threat, a concern that the president's well-being could be compromised.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently Secret Service thought that these protests, when they have been turning more violent, definitely at night, that they did take that into consideration and thought that it was a big enough concern. As far as an address from the president goes, we're hearing even from the press secretary this morning that she doesn't think that the president giving some sort of national address will essentially stop Antifa from inciting these violent protests. That's who the Trump administration, the White House, has been coming out and blaming on the violent protests. And that's where you're kind of seeing a little bit of disagreement between parties here, exactly who is potentially responsible. They all are condoning it. But as far as who is technically responsible, yeah, that's where you're seeing a little bit of disagreement there.
When it comes, Jesse, when it comes to issues like this, you mentioned Antifa, and the president yesterday or this weekend saying that Antifa is now a terroristic group. What does that moniker, that name of now calling it terrorism, what does that do in this situation?
It kind of depends, because right now the country doesn't even have a sort of, from what I understand, it doesn't necessarily have this domestic terrorism charge. And so I think in doing that, it would be putting a more official stamp on this group, since a lot have been arguing up until this point, you know, they don't really have an official leader. They don't have necessarily an official organizational structure. And so I guess from what we've been hearing from the White House, at least, is that President Trump, in doing so, would kind of put this more official stamp on this organization that really up until this point, no one really knows exactly who's running it, where it's headquartered, things of that nature.
Why would an address, according to who's in office right now and the president's team, why would an address not help things right now?
From their point of view, they're saying that, you know, Antifa, who's ever a part of this, and they're the ones inciting these, you know, the violence at the protests, that they wouldn't listen to something that the president would have to say. Whereas you have others, particularly members of Congress as well, local and state elected officials, calling for the president to at least say something in an attempt to unify the country. But at this point, I was seeing something, some reporting from the New York Times, that even some of President Trump's closest advisors had been advising him this weekend to not tweet, to not give an address, because he really didn't have anything to say.
From your local election headquarters, this is a special edition of Newsfeed Now, Campaign Trail Today.
This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right, if I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, United States.
The COVID-19 pandemic remains the biggest talker this election season. President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden shared the debate stage for the last time before the November 3rd election. If you missed it, we have everything you need to know right here on Newsfeed Now. Glad to have you with us. I'm Suzanne Bruner. We are now 11 days away from Election Day. Early voting numbers are coming in strong, with more than 40 million people casting their vote. Our panelists will join us here in just a few minutes to talk about last night's final debate and what that means for the race to the White House. But first, let's take a look at some headlines happening on the campaign trail right now. President Trump will be in Florida today, where he plans to vote. He has rallies planned at the Villages and in Pensacola. President Trump will spend the night at his Mar-a-Lago estate, and he says he will vote tomorrow before going to more rallies. Meanwhile, Joe Biden arrived back in Delaware overnight. He and his wife Jill, they're both scheduled to appear at a campaign event about COVID and the economy. This is going to happen in Wilmington. His running mate, Kamala Harris, will be in the Atlanta area, and there she will be attending some early voting events. But now let's get back to last night's debate. It was much calmer with fewer interruptions and more discussion of the issues compared to the first debate that many of you saw in Cleveland. I'd like to bring in our panelists to talk more about what we saw on the debate stage. We have Dave Price, a political reporter from Des Moines, joining us. We also have Kelly Myers weighing in from our DC bureau, and Chris Bungard from Nashville. Great to have you guys with us. Thanks so much. You know, both candidates touched on the COVID-19 pandemic. They talked about American families, race in America, climate change, and national security, among others. We have a few Newsfeed Now polls out right now, and people have been weighing in. So this first one, who won last night's debate? A majority of people who weighed in said Biden won. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Dave, let's start with you.
Yeah, that's probably not surprising. The debates have not particularly, in a general election setting, been the president's strong suit. He clearly had a different approach this time around that he did that first one. He was far more aggressive in that first one, and that's why they had the threat of the mute button for this one. So he was far more restrained throughout this debate. The question will be, does this debate, big picture, really make any difference? There are very few undecided people. If you start looking at the polls, just such a small sliver of persuadables, perhaps, at this point. So did the president do any lasting damage to Joe Biden? Or was this something that'll just largely focus on the fact that the president can show a more restrained approach, but does it really change any minds this late into the campaign?
Yeah, Dave, you bring up a good point there. Does this make a big difference? Can we bring up that poll once again? I'd like for folks to take a look at it. Again, the people who weighed in on this, 90% said Joe Biden, 10% Donald Trump. Kelly or Chris, would you like to weigh in on this as well?
Yeah, I would just add on top of what Dave said there. I think also because so many votes have already been cast at this point. I think they broke a record yesterday for the amount of people that have come out for early voting. So I think Dave makes a great point. You know, how many people were really swayed by this last debate?
Facts, not fear.
The governor is set to give an update any moment now on the coronavirus.
Hotel rooms in Nashville canceled amid coronavirus concern.
We have just learned of a new case of the coronavirus.
As coronavirus threats continue to grow,
to save lives, to help people through their suffering.
We're cutting through the clutter, bringing you the latest and most accurate information.
The community is preparing for patients if the coronavirus continues to spread.
Separating rumor from reality.
We are looking to save the maximum number of lives. Everything else is going to come back.
Newsfeed Now. Coronavirus facts, not fear, begins now.
It is a finally Friday amidst all of the coronavirus and COVID-19 talk. Don't forget that. We still get a weekend, Saturday and Sunday, right around the corner. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us. Special edition here of Newsfeed Now. I am Aaron Nolan. Look, the news continues to be flooded with COVID-19. Everyone in every community across our nation focused on the coronavirus and where we as Americans go next. Today, we've got a big show. From Washington, D.C. to California, from the beaches of the South to the Olympics in Tokyo. Got a lot to get to, but again, our goal here is to focus on the facts. We don't want you to be fearful. We're going to give you the information you need to make the best decision possible to keep you safe. Now, the president is scheduled to talk in about 15 minutes. Normally, let me be honest, the president runs a little bit late, but if that address happens during our show, we'll go live to Washington, D.C. Let's talk numbers. The latest from the CDC, there have been more than 8,000 cases of COVID-19 reported in the United States. Some of the hardest hit states are New York, California, and Washington State. Take a look at this map on your screen right now. If you're watching on an iPhone or maybe a mobile device or a tablet, you can see these numbers, maybe a little bit small, but those big numbers, it's the darker red that we're focusing on. Washington State, nearly 1,200 cases. California, with 910, New York with almost 5,300. Deaths, 185 so far reported. Nearly 400,000 U.S. cases. Right now we're looking at 368,000 cases in the United States, more than 11,000 deaths. As we have been reporting for a week and a half, almost 2 weeks now, New York is the epicenter now of the cases, 133,000 cases there. Let's go live now to Courtney Waddle. She's a nurse from North Texas who traveled to the Big Apple. You're working on the front lines, Courtney. First off, thank you for doing that. What kind of stories, what can you tell us that you've seen from the front lines working in New York?
Whenever we first got here, we got here pretty much whenever it was at the peak. And just supplies were so short, bed linens were short, it was chaos. There were so many people on ventilators, makeshift ICUs on every floor here. And it was just insane and a lot of work, but we're kind of starting to see a downtrend in hospital admissions and getting more and more normal patient loads with normal health issues.
Courtney, what can you tell us about this virus? We've heard it from scientists, we've heard it from governors, politicians, we've heard from a few that have had it, but for you, you've seen it from person to person to person to person. What can you tell us about what this is actually doing to people?
Well, first off, this virus, it doesn't discriminate. We've seen all ages, all ethnicities, all, just status, from the poor and homeless to the wealthy. It doesn't discriminate. It goes fast. You're hit hard with it fast. So, I mean, it's nobody knows. Like, nobody can tell you who's going to go down, who's going to come out of it. So,
is it a fearful situation for you to be on the front lines there, or are you able to compartmentalize that idea and really run full force ahead, trying to help as many people as possible?
I'm not going to lie. I was terrified to come up here, considering the circumstances and seeing everything on the news about it. But whenever you got here and you actually saw what was going on and how short-staffed all the hospitals were, whenever I got here, there were 2 staff nurses to 32 patients. And they were so grateful that we came to help. And so we kind of eased their workload. But after, seeing the 2 nurses and 32 patients, it's like, all right, we got to help these people. Like, fear goes out the window. We're just here to help.
Yeah, adrenaline kicks in that moment. Courtney, have you been able to feel the love from across the country, from where you're from to New York, people supporting you and uplifting you during a time that's probably draining you emotionally, physically, spiritually, all the above?
Oh my gosh, yes. All of the Facebook messages, posts, care packages from my coworkers, friends, family, people I don't even know, just showing their love and support, and just, admiring that we're here, but we're not in it for the admiration, because it's just what we do and it's our job to be here.
Courtney, thank you so much. It may be just what you do, but we never want to forget just what you do. So thank you for what you do. We appreciate you being there, fighting for those who are fighting for their lives. Courtney, thanks. The 2020 Olympics are due to open up in Tokyo July 24th, but with the coronavirus sweeping the world, there's growing concern that the games will either be postponed or even canceled. I want to bring in Sandy Morris from Team USA. Sandy won a silver medal in Rio, and Sandy, you recently tweeted out that you think that the Olympics should be postponed. I'm curious why you believe this way.
I've given it a lot of deep consideration. This past Monday was the first day where Arkansas's facilities where I train got shut down. So I've had a lot of time to sit at home and think about it with nowhere to train. So the problem with trying to proceed with them is every single athlete around the world is going to be in a different scenario right now. It would be extremely unfair.
Have you seen a shift in Washington where COVID has become a lot more politically charged as of lately?
I think that we're in an environment right now that is extremely polarized to begin with, and then you just add this this pandemic, and it just makes it even worse. I think that there is definitely a divide here in Washington. Like I was saying, it depends on who you talk to. Some say opening the states up is too soon. Others say it's not soon enough, and you just really see this great divide when it comes to making these key decisions about this pandemic from lawmakers here on Capitol Hill.
Michigan being one of the hot spots, things are developing right now. Tensions are growing over the governor's stay-at-home order. Protesters are converging on Lansing, that's the capital, to show opposition. Operation Gridlock's what it's called. It was scheduled to begin at noon. It started a little bit early. Leon Hendricks, we had him with us yesterday. Leon joins us live now from the state capitol. Leon, what can you tell us of what is going on behind you?
Oh, good afternoon to you. A surreal sight here in Lansing, Michigan right now, our capital city. We are right outside the Capitol building where the governor's office is located. And there is a large sign right here in the front that says security without liberty is called prison. These folks out here are wanting to express their displeasure, their disdain with the governor's stay-at-home orders that have shuttered businesses all across the state and put a number of people, a lot of people, out of work. They're saying that they believe the governor has gone too far with her orders, and they're here to make that known. Now, Operation Gridlock, the idea was that protesters would stay in their cars. So we are seeing that part of the protest here. You hear all the honking in the background. People have been driving around. Their plan is to cause a gridlock, a stop to traffic here in the capital city. And as you see, there is certainly some degree of success with that. Cars have clogged this street here right in front of the Capitol building. And you can see the number of people in their vehicles. A lot of them have signs, and a lot of them are wanting their voice heard. Take a look here right in this window. It says homes are essential. So they're talking about this idea that only essential businesses and essential travel is allowed to take place here in our state. Many of them taking issue with what is defined as essential here and what is not. Now, the protests, again, designed to stay in the vehicles, but we're seeing a lot of people saying, nope, they're going to get out of their vehicles. They're standing about here in front of the Capitol. We did hear from the governor earlier this week. She was aware that this protest was planned. She believed that it was politically motivated and being paid for by some of her political opposition. Whether that was founded or not remained a point of contention among both sides of the political aisle. But she encouraged folks not to show up here. But it's clear that the folks you see gathered here, they're not listening to that request from the governor, and they want her to know that they're not happy with this stay-at-home order. Aaron?
Leon, let's stay with you for just a moment. As we continue to look what's going on behind you, I do want to bring up exactly what happened. There was a change last week from your governor, Governor Whitmire, and it's not allowing travel to in-state vacation residents. So you can't travel. If you own a home in a different part of the state, you can't do that. You're not permitted to use a motorboat. Business restrictions have also been tightened, including large stores. You can't sell paint. You can't sell gardening equipment or gardening outside. There's also that neighbor clause. They don't want you crossing the street and going to talk to your neighbor. And it looks like to me, by all indications, that folks in Michigan are fed up. But before you go, Leon, I want you to talk about what happened this morning on the Today Show as Craig Melvin asked your governor about why this is happening. And again, you said it best. She said not to show up. But folks in this state are not listening today.
All right, at least the folks that we see out here aren't. Whether these folks represent the majority, of course, is up for a debate. There's certainly commentary on both sides of this. There are a number of people who think that this kind of protest is ridiculous, that it's exposing people to risk, and that they believe the governor is acting in good faith and acting in a way that is helping to keep Michiganders safe. But the folks that are gathered here feel that she has gone too far, that she's stepping on their rights with these executive orders. And in addition to all of the changes to the orders that you spelled out, she also extended the length of the order. Initially here, we were told this was going to be a 3-week order, which a lot of folks questioned whether that was too small of a time frame. Well, now she had to extend it through May 1st, and these folks are saying enough is enough, and you can better believe if this order continues to grow in any way, I think we will see this opposition, this resistance also continue to grow. Back to you.
Yeah, Leon, great point there. Despite what's going on there are other concerns there in Michigan that this protest is counterproductive to what we're trying to do and get rid of COVID-19. Leon, great reporting. Thank you for bringing it to us from both sides. Interesting stuff there happening in that part of Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely devastating out there in California right now. We have Olivia DeGeneiro joining us. Olivia, glad to have you here on Newsfeed now. Wow, just seeing where you're at. Tell us where you are and what you're seeing around you.
Good morning, Suzanne. So you mentioned San Francisco looked like a science fiction movie. Out here just north of Lake Oroville, it looks more like the apocalypse, honestly. All of that smoke, well, this is partly where it's coming from. And the visibility out here, we can't see much past this tree line. We have no idea what's behind this line of trees that we're standing right in front of. That's how thick the smoke is this morning. And that gives you an idea of the conditions that firefighters are dealing with as they're trying to get containment on this this fire. We're not too far from that Berry Creek area you just saw in Eric's story. We're not far from that area at all, and we're seeing a lot of those burned homes and destroyed properties from just the roadway, just what we can see through the smoke. It's hard to tell how many homes have been burned because the smoke is so thick we just really can't see the scope of the destruction.
Now we're going to head up north to Oregon, where thousands there are also having to leave their homes. Look at this video here. This is coming out of one Oregon community, but a number of wildfires are burning at this hour in the state's forested valleys, even along the coast. The fires have destroyed hundreds of homes. They've even forced many communities to issue state of emergencies. Oregon Governor Kate Brown said communities have been substantially destroyed. Sadly, she warned there could be a number of deaths. We have Elise Haas, who's been following the situation in Clackamas County, which is just south of Portland. We're so glad to have you, Elise. Tell us what's going on there right now. Some very heartbreaking images we're seeing.
Suzanne, it's all heartbreaking and it's happening all over the state. Like you mentioned, there's about 37 wildfires currently burning in Oregon right now. Where I am, I'm covering 4 wildfires in Clackamas County. I am in the heart of the level 3 evacuation zone. This is Estacada, and the air quality is very hazardous right now. Like Olivia was saying, where she is in California, here we are also seeing the ash rain down. So here, if you go a little bit further, you'll see the road is closed. No one can go any further in Estacada because just a half a mile down the road is where we know the fire is currently burning on the side of the highway. You can see that they've also closed off this other highway right here. Earlier this morning, I went down the road because a resident was crying to me, telling me that his home was getting ashes rained down on the roof. So I immediately called 911, and we got fire crews out there, and they're now protecting these homes just 2 minutes down the road.
And I did it just as a way to pass time during quarantine. Obviously, we miss sports. You know, being in sports myself, I wanted a way to kind of bring back that rivalry and that excitement that we missed so much. And yeah, I just this idea kind of came to me. I put out the video, and people loved it. So I was really happy about that.
What's so interesting is in the story, people were saying that you were only on TikTok for like a couple of weeks. So tell me, did you download it first, or did you have this idea and you're like, you know what, I'm going to join and put this video together? How did this all come about?
Yeah, great question. So, I kind of was on TikTok just for the fun of it. I'm sure as many other people my age were doing out there, and then never with the intent to put out any kind of content. And it came to me that was kind of a good platform to use for the videos that I had in mind. So, yeah, I took to it thinking maybe I'll put this video out there. It'll be an interesting little trial run, and it took off. So
I love it. You know, I'm impressed by all the sports gear you have. Did you already have that in hand, or did you get on Amazon or whatever to get all that?
Right. Well, fun fact, actually, and I get asked that a lot. I made a lot of the shirts. So I had a couple, obviously, living in Big Ten territory, and then the other logos I didn't have, or the gear I didn't have, I just printed it off and glued it to a shirt that matched the same color. So
creative, just like those videos.